Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to be shedding light on why most people do not become entrepreneurial content creators on YouTube. So why do most people desist, abstain, and refrain from becoming entrepreneurial content creators on YouTube? Well, the reason extends far beyond the ambit of it being extraordinarily cumbersome to become profoundly successful as an entrepreneurial content creator on YouTube. The primary reason as to why most people do not become entrepreneurial content creators on YouTube is because they are welfare aristocrats. They are disincentivized to work in any capacity. Welfare aristocrats, as you are acutely aware, have unlimited money in tandem with unlimited benefits. People work real private sector jobs based on voluntary demand in this control market economy, subsidize the amenities, the luxuries, the accoutrements of the high life, the unlimited money, and the unlimited benefits of the welfare aristocrats. Welfare aristocrats never want to lose their welfare aristocrat status. Therefore, they are disincentivized to work in any capacity. Most people are innately lackadaisical. Welfare aristocrats have the utmost highest standard of living. They never have to work for even a picosecond in their lives for anything that they receive. They have unlimited money from their handout payments and unlimited benefits from their handout benefits. In this control market economy, people work real private sector jobs based on voluntary demand will perpetually subsidize benefits. I should say they'll perpetually subsidize the amenities, luxuries, accoutrements of the high life, the unlimited money, and the unlimited benefits of welfare aristocrats. If welfare aristocrats were to work in any capacity, then their standard of living would precipitously plunge into the abyss. When you work a real private sector job based on voluntary demand, even as an entrepreneur, it can induce chronic burnout, chronic stress, chronic fatigue, and even chronic inflammation, especially if you're being sedentary for a prolonged period of time, or if you're being physically active for a prolonged period of time. Welfare aristocrats want to be able to indulge in living the high life in perpetuity for the remainder of their lifetime, and they're disincentivized to work. In this control market economy, you are penalized for being productive. Your hard-earned money is transferred to welfare aristocrats if you work a real private sector job based on voluntary demand. Welfare aristocrats reap the fruits of other people's labor. In this control market economy, you have no purview over how your hard-earned money that you earn is allocated if you work a real private sector job based on voluntary demand. So, most people are disinterested in becoming entrepreneurial content creators on YouTube. It requires 14 to 18 hours of strategic hard work each and every day for a bare minimum of 3 to 15 years to have a modicum of a chance to become profoundly successful on YouTube as an entrepreneurial content creator. Welfare aristocrats do not want to do anything to generate revenue, because if they do, then they could potentially lose their welfare aristocrat status. If they lose their welfare aristocrat status, then it can potentially culminate in them losing their unlimited money and their unlimited benefits. Furthermore, it would also wind up degrading their standard of living. When you don't have to work in any capacity and you receive all the amenities, all the luxuries, all the accoutrements of the high life, as well as all the unlimited benefits and all the unlimited money for free, then it allows you to attain the utmost highest standard of living. However, when you have to work your shell off for every penny that you earn, it adversely impinges on your standard of living. Because even if you have enough revenue to sustain yourself, being able to generate that revenue is conditional, is highly time draining, it's debilitating, it's strenuous, it's exhausting, it's cumbersome, and your work-related pursuits profusely drain your sacrosanct, indispensable, finite, precious time. The welfare aristocrat has full purview over their time. They do not have to work in any capacity to sustain their luxurious lifestyle. Whereas if you work a real private sector job based on volunteer demand, you may have to work at least 14 to 18 hours per day, 7 days per week for the remainder of your lifetime, or for decades on end, just to be able to sustain a low standard of living, because success is not guaranteed as an entrepreneur. And if you take the traditional linear path of working for an employer, they'll always pay you the bare minimum. They view their employees as expendable, exploitable, harvestable capital livestock to be harvested for profiteering purposes. Most private sector jobs based on volunteer demand are often deemed to be dead-end, dispiriting, highly time-consuming, unfulfilling, undesirable, harrowing, brutally wretched, ineffably agonizing minimum wage jobs that provide you with no basis for a future, because they do not even pay you anywhere close to 1/4 of a subsistence wage. So, I hope that you found this video to be insightful and enthralling. Lamentably, the interests of the employee and the employer are always diametrically opposed to one another. How so, you may ask? Well, the employer always wants to pay the employee the absolute minimum amount of revenue for the absolute maximum amount of time worked, whereas the employee wants to be able to receive the absolute maximum amount of revenue for the absolute minimum amount of time worked. In an employer market, employers hold of the cards, they have all the leverage. Begrudgingly, employees, just so they could have a modicum of money for food, they acquiesce, they concede to working these dead-end, debilitating, harrowing, agonizing, undesirable, unfulfilling, harrowing, brutally wretched, ineffably agonizing minimum wage jobs that do not even pay them anywhere close to 1/4 of a subsistence wage. So, based on the disparity in the pay grades between the CEO and the system managers, they deem 2 hours of the system manager's time to be commensurate to 1 second of the CEO's time. This means that if the system manager were to work for an employer, for a company for 5 decades, half a century, or 50 years, over the course of 104,000 hours by working for the company full time, he would still gross less revenue after 104,000 hours elapse than the CEO would be able to gross in under 15 hours. That's a disparity in income between the CEO and the system manager. In the digital era, a livable wage is at least a mean net wage of $122 per hour. If you want to retire after 20 years, 2 decades, or 1/5 of a century elapsed, that's how much you would need to net per hour over the course of 41,600 hours, so that by the time you're retired, you would have been able to save and invest at least $3,600,000 in the equities market, in dividends, in equities that bear 2% dividend yields, so that by the time you're retired, you would be able to receive at least $6,000 dividend payouts per month, or $72,000 in dividend payouts annually. But to be able to have a modicum of a chance to elicit that desirable outcome, you would need to earn a mean net wage of at least $122 per hour over the course of 41,600 hours post-working full-time for 20 years or 2 decades or 1/5 of a century. And you would work at least 2,080 hours per year. But if you do not have at least $3,600,000 invested in the equities market, in equities that bear 2% dividend yields, that do not expect to receive $6,000 dividend payouts per month or $72,000 in dividend payouts annually post-retiring after 20 years elapsed. Time is ephemeral, it's fleeting, and you do not want to squander your sacrosanct, indispensable, finite, precious time. You want to be able to prudently earmark your time and not blithely, impetuously, and prudently, gormlessly earmark your time. So, if a job is never going to offer you anywhere close to livable wage, then pivot to pursuing entrepreneurial pursuits. The only way to get out of poverty is to have your recurring revenue streams as an aggregate generate enough revenue or cash inflows to offset your recurring expenses. However, there is a caveat to that rule. If you become a welfare aristocrat, then you're set for life. However, if you work a real private sector job based on voluntary demand, the only way to get out of poverty is, as I stated earlier, would entail to have your recurring revenue streams as an aggregate generate enough revenue to offset your recurring expenses so that you could pull yourself out of the muck and mire and hopefully be able to discharge your insurmountable debts. A life you never want to regress. You never want to be stymied, nor stifled, nor impeded, nor encumbered. You always want to be able to move your life in a forward movement trajectory. So, do not allow your earnings potential to be fettered, and do not allow your earnings potential to be tethered to your time. You do not want your earnings potential to be tethered to a non-subsistence minimum wage imposed by an employer who doesn't give an iota about your health, happiness, dignity, future wealth, nor well-being. The goal of a company is to maximize profits and maximize the wealth of their shareholders. Is not conducive to maximizing the wellness of their employees. So just bear that in mind. So once again, succinctly stated, in sum, to recapitulate, most people do not become entrepreneurial content creators on YouTube because they are welfare aristocrats. Furthermore, most people have no ambition, no desire, no drive to make any contributions to the world. It's easier to be lackadaisical. It's easier to be inactive, indolent, sedentary, and not have overarching goals and not have higher aspirations than it is to strategically work hard, ceaselessly, 7 days a week for at least 3 to 15 years, in an earnest, valiant attempt to pull yourself out of the muck and mire, to become profoundly successful as an entrepreneurial content creator on YouTube. And if you do become profoundly successful as an entrepreneurial content creator on YouTube, then you can deduce that the content that you are providing enriches other people's lives. Because for you to reach that pinnacle, that zenith, that milestone of becoming profoundly successful on YouTube, you need to be able to create content that offers unprecedented value to your target market. Once again, I hope that you deem this video to be engrossing and insightful. Have a blissful day. Goodbye.